Okay. So last week we started with risk management, and we basically talked about what risk in itself is, the meaning of risk. We moved on to talk about the two categories of risks, and we had pure risks, which is called downside risks, and speculative risk, which is called a two-way risk. Okay. So we now moved on to also talk about the nature of risk management and how it is a direct responsibility of management. And then we also talked about the ICGN risk guidelines, where they were just emphasizing again that risk management is an executive function. We moved on to talk about the elements of risk management, just some core things that must be in place for a risk management system to actually work. So this morning, we're going to be starting from categories of risks. Categories of risks. Okay. So I saw Aisha's name already. Now, when we say categories of risks, you know that at the beginning of the class, we already did types of risks, where we said risks can either be a pure risk or a downside risk. Now, in categories of risks, we're looking at the various nature in which organizations or businesses are being opened up to risks. So we said the need to categorize business risks is crucial for the need to categorize business and strategic risks is crucial for sustainable organizational growth and continuity. A risk management system might be based on a category based on categorization of risks. There is no standard risk classification because the nature of risk management varies between businesses. The reason for categorizing risks is to give it some form of structure where each there's a committee, there are people that are responsible for some certain risks, and they know that they are supposed to share risk-related information to managers and also take responsibility when all these risks arise. So the board of directors might use the categories of risks for their internal reports so that they can be able to do their business review. You'll see that there's this rule that an organization is supposed to review its risks annually. So for them to review their risks annually, for them to know when new risks are arising, it just means that they must have properly categorized it. Okay. So they said the categories of risks common to many in businesses include, the first one we have is market risks. The second one we have is credit risks. We have liquidity risks. We have technological risks, legal risks, health and safety risks, and reputation risks. And then we have business property risks. So there are about eight of them that we'll be looking at this morning. So I'll just call your name and feel free to start reading. Okay. So who should I call now? I saw one Aisha on the call just now. Good morning, Aisha. Is this your first class?
No, I've been with you from the beginning. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. I like your profile picture.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start. Market risks.
Market risk is the risk from changes in the market price of key items, such as the price of key commodities. Market prices can go up or down, and a company can benefit from a fall in raw materials prices or incur a loss from a rise in their pricing. A company might be able to pass on high prices of raw materials to the customer by raising the price of its own goods or services. However, if it puts its prices up, there might be a fall in total demand from customers.
Yeah.
Higher prices leading to falling sales volume could result in low profit or losses.
Okay, thank you very much. So basically, market is the risk that arises from changes in the market, in the key items, right, in your business. Now, and this is a major thing. A major example that we use is, let's look at people that did their business plan with 700 as dollar conversion. Imagine that as of today, the person has not started the business. How realistic is it that that business will come to life? What is the tendency that that business will come to life? Is there any chance that the business will come to life? Hello?
No.
Why, why are the chances? What is the risk attached to and that had $1 to 700 as the conversion?
Foreign exchange risk. He did his plan at 700, and I think it's presently is at 1,005. So there's a cash. He will not have enough cash to start that business.
Exactly.
Or
So
cash flow.
imagine if you are gotten a grant to do that business and you did not implement it at that time. So market risk is just the risk that there will be changes in your key market prices from every now and then. And because of that, market prices will go up and down. So it is now the position of the company to look for how they can benefit when raw materials fall, when raw materials rise. Like, for example, let's look at agricultural produce. They fall and they rise. Do you see, they tell you in Nigeria, when things go up, they don't come down, right? When things go up in Nigeria, does it come down? No. Okay. So basically, that's what I'm just trying to say, that when it comes to market risks, it is just changes in the key market price, and it is for companies to look for a way to benefit from the fall and rise of these prices. Okay. Next one, credit risks. So Aisha, you can read 3. You read 4 for us since we have 8, and call the next person to read the next. Yeah. I just
Okay.
had major definition.
Okay. That's the one you highlighted, right?
Yes.
Okay. Credit risk is the risk of losses from bad debts or delays by customers in the settling of their debts. All companies that give credit to customers are exposed to credit risk.
Okay. So credit is from bad losses. Growing up, you see no credit today, come tomorrow. No credit. So every day you come, they're telling you to come tomorrow. So basically, the size of a credit risk depends on the amount of receivable owed to the company and the credit quality of the customer. Credit risk is a major risk for commercial bank because lending is part of their business operations. There are some businesses that, trust me, before they even like close out on a deal, the amount of credits that they will have been owed is a lot. So that is credit risk. It is just the risk that arises from what? From bad losses, whereby customers are not settling their debts on time. Okay. So like I said, it is a major risk for what? For commercial banks. Okay. So next one, liquidity risks. Can I read this one?
Okay. Liquidity risk is the risk that the company will be unable to make payments to settle liabilities when payments is due.
Okay, so we have that. I think this one is straightforward. Actually, you are the tutor here now. Tutor with me. What does it mean? When they say that this company has become illiquid, what does
which means it doesn't have enough cash to pay short-term liability. It doesn't. It has exhausted all its cash somehow, so it may have to borrow or sell assets. Matters on how fast it can do that.
Yeah, in terms of liquidity itself, it's not only like you are correct, cash. Let me give us a practical example. In the US, they make their financial statements with the most liquid assets first. So you know how we do our own FS in your FR, you'll have seen you put PP, you put intangible assets, right? You put investment property. In the US, they prepare their accounts using cash. So they will put cash and cash equivalents, then they'll put their inventory. Because they have, they don't use they don't use the International Financial Reporting Council standards. They use the GAP, generally accepted accounting practices. So they believe that you can't say you have money if I ask you for that money right now and you cannot bring it out. Is that thought process, is it logical? You can't say you have money if I ask you for money right now and you cannot bring it out. So no, even if you have 5 billion in PPE, the amount of time it takes to close off a deal, right, does not mean that your business is able to meet up with current small obligation that it has to fulfill. Okay, so that is liquidity risk. So you say it can occur when a company has no money in the bank and is unable to borrow money quickly, and it has no asset to sell, that it can quickly get money to obtain cash. Companies can be profitable and still be liquid shortage. Yes, companies can be, this is one thing that is very, very important. Companies can be profitable but still be liquid shortage, maybe because so much like they don't have cash to fulfill their current obligations. Okay, so let's look at technological risks. The last one for Ms. Aisha.
Yes. Technological risk is the risk that could arise from changes in technology or inadequacy of technological system in use.
Okay, you can continue. Let's read. Let's see what he said.
Okay. When a major technological change occurs, companies might have to make a decision about whether or not to adopt the new technology. If they adopt the new technology too soon, they might incur higher costs than if they waited until later. If they delay adopting the new technology, there is the risk that a competitor will take advantage and use the technology to gain market share.
So technological risks. Do you know that? Okay, do you know that this other part you just read can be an exam question, right? They can ask you that, what are the advantages of taking up a new technological change on time, and what's the disadvantage? The disadvantage of taking up a new technological change on time is that, first of all, it may be really not really expensive. It may cost the company more, when there's already a buzz of a new technology, and then it is in the heat of the moment that your company wants to migrate to that particular software. It to some certain extent will cost the company more. And the second thing is that sometimes technology may not even stand the test of time. You may realize that there's a major default, right, with such technology. But the disadvantage of not buying into a technology on time is that your competitor might have bought into it on time. There's a high chance that your competitor would have bought into it on time and they would have used it to gain market share, right, against you as their competitor. Okay? So that is technological risk. Thank you, Aisha. Aisha has done market risks, credit risks, liquidity risks, and technological risks for us. Okay, let's now move on to the last four: legal, health and safety, reputation and business property. We even have derivative. So let me go to the group and okay, so I can see a Ozioma. Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
I'm fine. Good morning, ma'am.
Okay. So let's have it.
Okay, legal risk. This, which includes regulatory risk, is the risk of losses arising from failure to comply with laws and regulations, and also the risk of losses from legal actions and lawsuits.
Okay, so legal losses is basically regulatory risks, and legal risk is basically regulatory risks. And this is where we're looking at it, that it is just the risks of failures that arise because you have not complied with laws and regulation. And I personally think it is more in some industries like telecoms, aviation, oil and gas. You don't want to start to get into legal risks with all these people, even real estate, right? You don't want to get into legal risks with all these people because it can be very, very, it can literally lead to the end of the business, right? When this risk materializes. So it's for a company to know how to manage risks. And that's why you go to some organizations and you see that they have compliance units, right? Compliance unit is basically to make sure that when it comes to following laid down rules, the company is compliant. You understand? So that they are not being issued fines and all of that. So health and safety.
Okay, health and safety risks are risks to the health and safety of employees, customers, and the general public. Environment risk are risk of losses arising in the short term or long term from damage to the environment, such as pollution or the destruction of non-renewable raw materials. The risks faced by companies vary according to the nature of their business. Companies are required to comply with health and safety regulations. This has a cost. If they fail to comply with regulations, they could be liable to a fine if government inspectors discover the failure to comply. And if there is an incident in which employees or customers suffer injury or ill health as a consequence of a failing in health and safety control measures, the company could be exposed to large fines from government and lawsuits from the individuals affected. If a company fails to deal with environmental risk in a satisfactory way, it could suffer losses in various ways. For example, it might be fined for a breach of anti-pollution regulations, and it might suffer a loss of customers. For example, if its reputation suffers as a result of an incident in which severe damage is done to the environment, such as a major oil spillage.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's break down health. So from what you have read now, you will see that health and safety and environment are two different ones. Relate to the employees. Okay? Health and safety relate to your what? Employees. Where we're saying that to your employees, customers, and general public, where we're saying that okay, when people use your goods, they should be able to still keep the quality of life that they have, right? Or it should not be hazardous for people to come to your office. It should not be hazardous for people to use your products, right? That is health and safety for your employees, for your customers. Why environment is the risk that arises, whether in short term or in long term, for damages made to the environment, right? An environmental risk can lead to or open an organization up to a legal risk. Do you get? So we said that the risk faced by company, what happens is that it comes at a cost. If this risk should materialize, if this health and safety risk should materialize, maybe I've heard maybe somebody went to a particular office and the person was injured, all of that. Definitely, what happens? You will need to cover the medical fees, right? And at the same time, we also have that if the company does not comply with environmental rules and they are being slammed with fine from the government, it's usually a lot of money, right? So they're just basically trying to tell us that when it comes to health and safety, it usually comes at a cost. Now, when a company does not fulfill environmental factors or they are being faced with environmental risks, what happens? Number one, they can be fined for breach of anti-pollution regulations, right? Yeah, that's basically saying that, oh, this company, we don't recognize this company as an ethical company, and that can be a problem. And then the second one is that when they may suffer a loss and then they will lose their customers. You know, growing up, you must have heard that when a company will just be on their own, no, they'll just share bad rumor about them that, oh, Paleji is using a bad chemical to do their biscuits. And before you know, you see parents not wanting to buy it for their children again. You understand? So that's one thing about environmental risks, or maybe just hearing that a company is not, being ethical or not following guidelines and they are making the general public suffer a loss. Okay? Thank you very much, Ozioma. So let's do reputation risks.
Okay. Reputation risk is difficult to measure. In other words, to quantify. It is the risk that a company's reputation with the general public and its customers or the reputation of its product brand will suffer damage. Damage to reputation can arise in many different ways. such
Okay.
as incidents that damage reputation, are often reported by the media. Companies that might suffer losses from damage to their reputation need to be alert to any incidents that could create adverse publicity. Public relations consultants might be used to assist with this task.
Thank you very much. So, please, my people, give me 2 minutes. I want to stop to share my screen now. Okay, thank you. So, reputation risks. Now, when I'm teaching and I remember reputation risks, right? You know what always comes to my mind? Is just example like the whole Dangote saga that happened, was it not in 2023? January 2023, we woke up to just back and forth Dangote and a particular, it was a grown woman being a girl, a woman, right? She had come out, accused him of some things and all of that. And the long and short was that at the end of the day, the share price of Dangote fell just because of that information. And people were like, okay, but this is a full-grown man. He has the right to have external relationship with other people and all of that. But that is how important, that is how much brand image is a thing, right? That's how much brand image is a what? Is a thing. Now, what's reputation risk? You're saying that it is the risk that a company may face a bad reputation, damage to their reputation, reputation in the media. And usually when it happens, companies are usually on the receiving end. And that's why they do everything. They do everything to make sure that this risk does not what? Materialize. Okay? Next one. We now said when companies suffer a loss to their reputation, they need to be alert to matters that could create adverse publicity. And that's why you see that when all these bad things happen, immediately they'll go and pay all these influencers to help them to negate the information, right? So that is not what the public is getting. So they even pay people to do like a reversal of those news so that they can be in good light to the public. Okay, so we have business probity risks. Business probity risks. Is your mic, you can read for us.
Okay. Probity means honesty and integrity. Business probity risks the risk of losses from a failure to act in an honest way. Companies in some industries might be exposed to this type of risk. For some products, there might be a large trade in smuggled goods, such as cigarettes and alcohol products. Companies might be expected to deal with smugglers in order to increase sales of their products. The consequences, if any dishonesty or crime is discovered, could be criminal prosecution, fines by government, or loss of reputation with the public. In some countries and some industries, bribery is a problem. Companies might find that in order to win sales in some countries, they have to pay bribes, that is, commission to individuals. By failing to pay bribes, companies would not win sales contracts. By paying bribes, companies act dishonestly and could be exposed to regulatory action or criminal action by the authorities if evidence of bribery is uncovered.
So you can see business probity risk simply means honesty and integrity. So here we're looking at it that it is just the risk that arises where a company does not act in an ethical way. And because of that, if the matter is discovered, right, there will definitely be some form of criminal prosecution, fines, loss of reputation, right? So you can see that a particular matter can lead to a business probity risk and also lead to a reputation risk, right? Because if this information should get out, the perception that people have of this company will change, and then they may begin to suffer a loss as a result of this. Okay, so that is business probity risk. Okay, so we have derivatives.
This is another, okay.
Thank you, Farid.
Okay, derivative risk is another type of risk included in the syllabus for the examination. They include commodity derivatives and financial derivatives. Commodity derivatives are contracts on the price of certain commodities, such as oil, wheat. Derivative instruments include options, futures, and swaps. They can be used to control risk by hedging exposures to price risk, that is, market risk. On the other hand, they can be used to speculate on changes in market prices.
Okay, thank you. So like we said, derivative risk is basically, they said that it's another type of risk included in the syllabus. So we have two types of derivative. We have commodity derivative and financial derivative. What is a derivative? Derivative is basically a major way to explain it is just holding down prices, right? With swaps. So let's say, for example, I have wheat, I want to buy oil, right? I can say that, let me give you my wheat at this particular rate, such that in May, you will give me your oil at this particular rate. So it is more like you are keeping or controlling a price by edging. You are edging yourself, because let's say, for example, palm oil is currently 25,000, and I say, okay, I need 1,000 kg of palm oil in May, and I know that it is going to go up. It's going to be about 30,000. So let me give you wheat that equates to 27,000 naira per the oil, right? Right now in January, such that I'm able to hedge against the price exposure that will happen to your oil in May. Do you understand? So that's basically what they use derivatives to do. So it can be commercial derivatives, we do goods for goods, or it can be financial derivatives where you are holding on to a certain amount at a certain rate. Where you are saying that, oh, I will pay you a certain amount of dollar, but it will be at this rate in May, regardless of whatever the current conversion price for dollar is. Do you understand? That is derivative. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the nature. Thank you very much, everyone. So let's go over our 8 risks together. The first one is what? Market risks. You guys should unmute and let's talk. Market risks. Please, let's confirm that this class is still recording. Is it still recording?
Yes.
Okay, yes, it is. So we have market risks, then we have
credit risk,
technological risks, legal risks. It's on the screen. Health, safety, and environmental risks, reputation risks, business probity risks, and what? Derivatives. I've not heard Alexa's voice in this class. Okay, maybe let me just go over
I'm here, ma'am.
Let's go over a few things, and when we're ready, you read for us as well. So the next, let's look at the nature of business and financial risks. We said board of directors need to consider business risks when they are making strategic decisions. It is to choose strategies that are expected to be profitable, that business risks should be, and they should make sure that business risks are at a level that's considered acceptable, right? And the thing is that when it comes to making risks-based decision making, it is a strategic decision, just like you have learned last week. It is a high-level decision. So you said business risks are risks that threaten the survival of a business. Business risks usually called inherent risks. They are risks that you cannot take out of that business. Like I was saying last week, imagine selling ice block in Nigeria. Your inherent business risk is the instant power supply, right? That is your biggest contender. Now, we said that financial risk is also a major. Okay, did we do financial risks here? No. Okay. So please, financial risk can also be a category of risks. Now, what's financial risk? Financial risk is the risk that a business will not be able to meet its financial obligation. Or sometimes they can say that it is the risk that is embedded in the capital structure, finance structure of a company. They will tell you that it is better to use debt financing than equity when you are doing your business. Although it is now bad if a company is too highly geared. You do that in your FR, where you start to do your ratios. A highly geared company is a company that has more debt than equity, right? A highly geared company is a company that has more debt than equity components. So financial risk is a risk that is embedded in the capital structure of a company. Maybe they have too much equity, which leads to overcapitalization, or they have too much debt, which leads to them being a geared company. So it's good to have a moderate amount of debt. Not that you will not have debts that as a company you're not able to sleep. Do you understand? Maybe debts with high interest rates, everything that you want to do, you have to do it via borrowing. That is a problem. At the same time, being overcapitalized is also a problem, where you just have money lying around. Okay? Where you have money lying around, effective use. That can also be a problem. So I've been teaching for 40 minutes. I've not even asked if you had questions. Questions, anybody? Any question, anybody?
Yes, so please throw more light on that derivative risk.
Okay. Okay, let me give you an example. Let's think trade by barter, okay? What is trade by barter? I want you to be the one to explain it to me so that you get it. What is trade by barter?
Okay, it's more like swapping. I have beans, but and you don't have beans, but you have rice, and I want rice. So like kind of exchange.
Yes.
Give me what you don't have, and then I take.
Thank you very much. So now derivative is now trade by barter, but I don't want it now. I know that, okay, you have rice. I want beans. I want to do naming in May, but I want beans in May. And I know that the price of beans in May would have increased. So I want to give you rice now so that you can give me beans at that time at the current price of today. Do you understand? So let's say, for example, beans is currently 25,000 today. You understand? In May, we're looking at it that beans will be 30,000. So I want to give you 28,000 now, so that when it comes to May, right, I don't have to give you 30,000. So let's say for my own rice too, 25, my own rice is currently 30,000. Your beans is going to be 30,000 in May. I will now multiply it and say, okay, how much is 150,000 of your beans, right? I will now give you. I'm trying to look for an exact illustration. Okay, let me use simple numbers. Okay, let's use simple numbers. Your rice is currently 2 naira. The beans is currently 2 naira as well, right? But in May, the beans is going to be 4 naira. And now say, let me give you 3 naira, such that when it is May, I will not pay 4 naira for that beans. Now, because I want to give you 3 naira, I will now say, okay, 3 naira in 3 places, that is 9 naira. I'll give you 9 naira worth of rice, such that in May, whatever the price of beans is, you will still give me 9 naira worth of beans. Do you understand?
Maybe it's
Yes, ma'am.
Or you are still confused. But just think about it. It is simply trade by barter, but at a future date. Do you understand? That's enough. Trade by barter, but at a future date. You do it in SFM. When you get to professional, this topic alone is we very students used to confuse it and all of that. But it is typically just trade by barter, but at an extended time. Do you understand? Okay. So any other question? Anybody, any question? Hello? Okay, let's continue. Now we're looking at the concepts in risk management. We're looking at some risk management concepts. So Alexa, you can read for us. The first one is exposure to risks.
When a company is exposed to risk, this means that it will suffer a loss if there are unfavorable changes in conditions in the future or unfavorable events occur. For example, if a Nigerian company holds $2 million, it is exposed to a risk of a fall in the value of the dollar against Naira because the Naira value of the dollar will fall.
Okay. So exposure to risks. Okay, continue.
Companies need to assess the significance of the exposure to risk. If possible, exposure should be measured and quantified. If a Nigerian company holds 2 million, its exposure to a fall in the value of the dollar against Naira is $2 million. If
Mm.
an investor holds 100 million in shares, 100 million Naira in shares of Nigerian listed companies, it has 100 million exposure or 100 million Naira exposure to a fall in a Nigerian stock market.
Yes, thank you very much. So exposure to risks simply means, this is an exam question. I can like this question. It simply means that a company will suffer a loss if there are unfavorable changes. I'm trying to look for the highlighting the highlight option, but doesn't seem to be here. Okay, no problem. Okay. So it simply means that a company will suffer a loss if there are unfavorable changes, favorable or unfavorable changes in the future, right? But for you to be exposed to a risk, it means that it must be something you currently hold, right? So that's where we now got the examples from where they said, for example, the moment you have dollar, the moment a company is holding dollar, it just means they're exposed to foreign exchange risks, where the price can increase, but there's a chance that the price can fall, right? Like last year when the CBN had a plan to regulate the dollar, right? And companies now started to face foreign exchange risks. So at the same time, if you hold Naira, you are also exposed to the foreign exchange conversion risks. Okay, so you may think you have 100 million in Naira, but if you look at it like the global value or the international value of that 100 million Naira, it may not have the same value as of the time you put it in. Okay, so that is what exposure to risk. It means that a company will suffer a loss if there are unfavorable changes that occurs in the future, favorable or unfavorable changes that occur in the future. So we have the next one, residual risks. This one I like it. It's very simple and it makes a lot of sense. What is residual risks, Alexa?
Companies control the risk that they face. Controls cannot eliminate risk completely, and even after taking suitable control measures to mitigate a risk, there is some remaining risk exposure. The remaining exposure to a risk after control measures have been taken is called residual risk. If a
Thank
residual
you.
risk is too
Mm-hmm.
high for a company to accept, it should implement additional control measures to reduce the residual to an acceptable level.
Okay, so residual risk is basically the risk that cannot be is the risk that remains after all effort has been done to mitigate against the risk, right? So it's more like saying that you don't want this risk to happen at all. You are trying so hard to protect yourself from this risk, but the risk still materialize. Like let's say, for example, health and safety, right? You go to companies, they have fire extinguisher, people even have fireballs, um, they have a security unit on standby. They have, there are different things that company puts in place, right, for health and safety. But doesn't mean that there is no tendency that somebody will go to work today and not injure at the place of work. Let's say, for example, for a manufacturing company, the chances of that not happening is very, very slim. So even after they've done all their protective equipment, they've made sure that everybody is wearing their full gear and all of that, there is still a residual risk that's attached, right, to that particular business activity. So the residual risk is the risk that remains after all effort has been put in place to reduce a risk to its minimum, right? And they're typically the risks that you accept, because most of the time, I'm even jumping now, but most of the time, the cost of reducing these risks further is more expensive than the benefits that you gain from from the risks materializing, you know, so, or the risks not materializing. So that is why residual risk is typically a risk that companies will just say, okay, you know what, let's accept this risk and let's know that, okay, something that we have to deal with actively. Okay. So now, thank you. Let's look at the dynamic risks of the dynamic nature of risk assessment. Now, we said that organizations, the way they are exposed to changes in internal and external risks, it differs. So it sees there's no one size fits all for a risk. There's no one size fits all. You must know how you want to deal with the risks that you are facing, right? Like how in this exam now, the risk for somebody may be calculation courses. You want to just CPM, you are just turned off, you don't even know what to do anymore. Because for some people, you may be note courses, CSME buzz you out. You're like, oh, what's this girl just saying? We are just here talking for 2 hours, all of that. So it is you that needs to identify what is a risk area for you and how you are going to make sure that you are actively managing against this risk. Okay? So that is the dynamic nature of risk assessment. Every company has their own risks and they must determine what is a priority for them. You know, you can, like example, imagine using yourself to judge a wealthy person's level of finance changes, like what they are willing to accept when it comes to their money, right? That may not work. Okay. So we also have risk appetite. This one is also a subheading that ICAN really likes. Normally, we'll be able to. I don't know if this means that we haven't downloaded it. Okay, I'm with you. Let's continue. Risk appetite. Okay, let's have another person read for us. So, Olatundu. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So this is just a way to engage students in class, because we're here, we're just reading notes. Somebody may think that, oh, nothing is going on. I'm coming, I'm the one that is scrolling. Okay, let's continue. Risk appetite.
Okay. So can I read it now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Risk appetite. A company must accept some risk in order to make profits. This means that a risk of making a loss must be accepted in order to create a chance to make profit. A company will take the risk if its management decides that the risk of loss is justified by the expectation of a gain. Risk appetite is concerned with how much risk management are willing to take. Management might be willing to accept the risk of loss up to a certain maximum limit if the chance of making profit is sufficiently attractive to them. For a market trader in the financial market, risk appetite has been defined as the amount of capital that a trader is willing to lose in order to generate a potential profit. The risk appetite of a board or management depends on the nature and importance of the decision, the nature and amount of the potential gains or losses, and the reliability of the information available to help the board or management to make their decision.
Okay, thank you very much. So risk appetite is simply the extent of risks that you are willing to accept. That is what it means. The extent of risk that you are willing to accept in order to make a profit. And a good example in this class would be saying that there's some of you, all the tricks that people have used to extort money out of people, you have you have fell for it. And that just shows you your level of risk appetite. Your MMM, a different give mix, right? You are falling for it. Similarly, there are some companies that are that way. If they think about how they can make more money from this particular thing, right? They have higher chances of just going into it. But it's not that you are supposed to beat yourself about it. So there are basically three risk appetites. We have risk lovers, we have risk conservative, and we have risk conservative and neutral, and we have risk adverse. Risk lovers are maybe a person or a company that likes to take risks, right? They like to take risks. That is a risk lover. The second one is a risk conservative person or a risk neutral person. For those ones, they have extent of risk that they are willing to take, right? They don't just want the risk to be overboard, right? They just, okay, this is the money I have to put in this thing, and if it doesn't work, there's no problem. Then we also have risk adverse. Those ones, they just tell you that, is there a chance for my money to go? The moment you say yes, they'll say, I'm not even interested, I'm not doing it again, right? So you can see that based on the people's attitude towards risk, it determines the extent to which they are willing to go when it comes to making money. Like example, they said in the trader market, risk appetite is defined by how much capital a trader is willing to lose. You must have heard this guy from this Markangel, Emanuela's guardian, that was saying that he lost $3.5 million to Forex, right, last year. So that is to tell you that this person most likely has a high appetite to risk, right, because he's looking at the potential return. Okay, so moving on, we have board policy on risk. What is the board policy on risk? The risk appetite of a company is decided by the board of directors, and that's why they will tell you that you cannot, we have something that we call, if you are doing audits, control environment. Control environment is the extent to which management takes control, and that is how the company will take control. Typically, you cannot take risks more than the appetite that your board of directors have. So they are supposed to have a policy to communicate to the board or managers that, okay, this is the extent of risks that we're able to take, and managers too are supposed to be aware that this is the level of risk that is suitable for our company to take. Like some companies, for no reason, they will not invest in crypto. No matter how good it is, they will not invest in crypto. While some people may it's okay, can we look at a new line of business that allows us to be able to do this? You know, some companies are more flexible in that nature than some other ones. Moving on, we have risk-based approach. Risk-based approach. What is a risk-based approach? It's basically making decision after you have done a detailed evaluation of the risk and exposure. And you know that, okay, this is what can happen. This is, risk-based approach simply means making decisions from a risk point of view. You have evaluated the risks and you're saying that, having considered all of this, right, I am thinking that this is the decision I want to make. Okay, so that is a risk-based approach. Okay, now in risk management, I want to show you guys one diagram. I don't know why they didn't put the diagram here. Okay, well, okay, your risk management has 4 areas. Are you with me? Your risk management has 4 areas. What is risk management? Risk management is all the effort that board of directors put in place to efficiently or effectively manage a risk. There are 4 areas of your risk management. We have identification, assessment, risk monitoring and review, and we have risk response. Okay, so we're going to take them one by one. We're going to take them what? One by one. The first one is risk identification. Your risk identification is the first step of your risk management. You cannot mitigate against a risk that you do not know that is present. You cannot mitigate against a risk that you do not know that exists. So let me give you an example. Let's say last year you bought a landed property, okay? And you did not even call quality surveyors to look at the quality of the land or the soil, right? And you just started to build, okay? And then 5 years into the line, you are hearing that, oh, you built on a swampy ground. Are you with me? You know that the moment you have that information, you have to start looking for insurance for that landed property, right? Because you have now identified a risk in that particular engagement. So let's read what they write here, what they have written here. We have that risk identification and initial stage of risk management. A company needs to understand what risks it faces, both in its environment and its market. So both internally, that is strategically, both externally, which is strategically, and internally, which is operational risk. So strategic risk is the risk that's coming from outside, your pestle, right? Okay, you're not on models, but pestle is political, environmental, socio-economical, technological, ecological, and legal environments. Those things are your strategic risks. And then we have operational risks, so are all the ones that we just said in class today. Market risks, credit risks, things that are within your control typically. So they said that there's no standard rule for how you should identify your risks. In large companies, it may be appropriate to identify risks at different levels. They will do it at the group level, at the business unit level, at the departmental level. Okay, this is the risk that we can face in this department. This is the risk that we can face in this department. Then we have that management might be responsible for identifying strategic risks for the company, but the internal auditor or external auditors might be more efficient at identifying operational risks because they are the ones that are doing the day-to-day running, right? So they're in a better position to let you know that, okay, this is what is happening. Then we also have that large companies also use a risk committee. We'll talk about risk committee as we move on further. So they will set up a panel, an independent panel of people that are going to be reviewing or helping them to identify these risks. Then we have that each committee will now be responsible for reporting on a particular risk, maybe within a geographical area or within a particular function in that company. We said risks identified by a company will vary according to importance. Some risks might be unimportant and they may be easily controlled, while some risks might be significant. Having identified risks, it is therefore important to now look at how to do what? Assess the risks. How to do what? Assess our risks. Now, there are different ways that we assess our risks. The first one is that we can rank our risks in the order of priority. As we move on further in this class, we should look at the way we rank our risks. Let me just, yes, okay. So we'll look at the way we rank our risks. Maybe we should even look at them now so that we're not confused. So we have what we call a risk dashboard, okay? A risk dashboard. A risk dashboard is basically a traffic light, right? It's like a traffic light. I should be able to draw on Zoom. So it's typically like your traffic lights, okay? So has different right? Green is go, Abi. Then we have yellow.
Ready to go.
And then we have red. Okay, so now let's look at their own. Let somebody read for us. Let somebody read for us, please.
Okay. A risk dashboard can be used to identify which risks need further control measures. On a simple dashboard, each risk that has been identified is represented by a colored light. These are usually green, amber, and red, representing the colors of traffic signals. When a risk has a red light, this indicates that further risk measures are needed. A green light indicates that the risk is under control. An amber light indicates that the risk needs to be kept under review. A more complex risk dashboard can be used for each risk to show, one, that the total amount of risk, assuming that no control measures are in place to contain the risk. Secondly, that the residual risk, which is the remaining exposure to risk, after allowing for the control measures that are in place. And thirdly, that the risk appetite of the company for that particular risk, which is the exposure to risks that the company is willing to accept in order to obtain the expected benefits from its activities. Risk appetite may be much higher on the dashboard than the residual risk that exists for a particular risk. This could indicate that controls are excessive for that particular risk. Since controls come at a cost, management may save costs by relaxing some of the controls without exposing the company to greater risk.
Thank you very much. So one of the ways that we can assess our risks is basically using a risk dashboard. So it's like traffic light, like we have just read. Green means that the risk is under control. Amber means that it is kept under review, and a red risk is that, oh, there's a lot of risks, right? So they said that a more complex one would show you the amount of risks, assuming no control is in place, the residual risks, after they've even tried to mitigate it, what exactly is left. So we said risk appetite might be much higher on the dashboard, because what somebody will consider as high risk is different from what another person will consider as high risk. So the attitude of management towards risks needs to be known so that they know what they are willing to accept. Some companies are willing to accept so much, right, just to be able to have financial returns. But some people are, and typically you are supposed to be on the average, right? Especially when you're using shareholders' money. It's not that you should now be taking dangerous decisions because you are a risk lover. On companies' end, they don't take that form of risk, okay? So we also have something that we call, okay, I don't know if we should even do this now, but let's continue. We also have something that we call, I'm coming. I don't know if we should do this now. Okay. Let's come back up. Let's come back up so I don't confuse you. So let's say rank the risks in order of significance. Abi, and what can you use to do that? What do you use to rank your risks in order of significance?
Risk dashboard.
Exactly. So B, we said identify the risks that are most significant and identify the significant risks where control measures are needed. Like when a risk is red. So we had this like project management office somewhere that I worked for renewing office papers, right? And it was basically they will input a formula such that when the registration is due, it will change indicator to red. Okay, so that shows us that, oh, we need to go and renew these particular papers and all of that. Okay, moving on. Now, I want to look at the impact of risks on different stakeholders. You see this particular one, we can spend, because we can spend all of our time here because it's one of ICAN's favorite place to even ask questions. Impact of risks on different stakeholders.
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, okay, let me just. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It's showing here that Zoom is not responding. Okay. So now I was saying that this impact of risk is a very important question. Sometimes that is when we say ICAN is asking risks, this is maybe the only thing, right, in that diet that has risks. So let's see. Now, what is the impact of risks on different stakeholders? There are different stakeholders in a business, right? And the way something would matter to you is different from the way it will matter to you. You understand? So we're going to be looking at different stakeholders and different people that when these categories of risks materialize, how it affects them, right? So how is the question asked? You'll be given like a case study. That case study will have an outline of different risks, and they'll tell you that, okay, list out different stakeholders and talk about how the closure of this business, or how the growth of this business will affect these stakeholders. So the process of identifying risks should concentrate. The process of identifying risks should concentrate on risks to the company, both strategic risks and operational risks. However, the risks for a company should also create risks. The risks for a company also create risks for shareholders. Management should be aware of the impact of the company's risks on shareholders, because the risks for stakeholders could affect the attitude and behavior of stakeholders towards the company. So, first of all, let's list out different business stakeholders and type. So give me a list of stakeholders. Who are stakeholders? People that affect or can be affected by the activities of a business. That's the definition of your stakeholder. So who are stakeholders? Please give me, let's type out before we even go and read what we have. There's some people's voice that I've not heard at all in this class. Augusta, good morning. Miriam has read this morning.
I'm not read this morning.
Good morning. Okay. Good morning. Yeah. So Miriam, give me a list of stakeholders. Give me a list.
Okay, we have the owners or shareholders, the company's employees, lenders, investors, the general public. Yeah, those are examples of stakeholders.
Okay, because I want 10 stakeholders.
10, okay.
Yes.
Shareholders, employees, investors.
Okay.
Investors, creditors, or lenders. Then we have the general public or the customers. We also have trade union reps. Yeah, those are examples of stakeholders. Trade union.
Oh, you guys are quiet. Can I help out? Hello, can you hear me? But we can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Can you hear me?
I lost you for a bit. Trade union, shareholders, employees, investors, creditors, management. Yes. Trade union. Who again?
Customers.
Okay, thank you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Customers, debtors. The government, so call every other person is quiet. People don't know stakeholders.
Competitors.
Thank you. Competitors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we could go, this is just to show you that we could go on and on and on, right? Basically, when it comes to different stakeholders in a business. So we're going to be looking at how these different people are. So if you have a text, you have of companies' risks on different stakeholders. So let's do it together. The first one, employees. Before we read, when a company closes down, what is the impact of the closure of a company on employees?
Layoff.
Exactly. They lose their job, right? Threat to their job, right? The second one is what? So let's read. Employees are exposed to several risks on their job. This includes the loss of the job, threats to the health and safety in the work that they do. Employee benefits might also be threatened. These risks to employees can be affected by the risks that the company face. Jobs might be threatened by strategic decisions taken by the company. If a company makes wrong strategic decision and the company loses money, many employees may lose their job. Then we have safety risks. Safety risks for a company might be measured in terms of the risks of serious injuries and minor injuries to employees in a given time. Now, we said the risks of some employees might differ from the risk appetite of the company in the board's policy on risks. For a rugged trader working in the finance market for a bank might be willing to take high risks for the company because of the potential benefits, or for him because a large bonus is taken for making large profits, which exceeds the risks, which is the possible loss of his job. So they are saying that when it comes to employees, right, if they ask an example, what are the risks that they may face? They may be threatened with their job. There's a risk of health and safety hazards because they are at the place of work. And also, there's a risk that the attitude of the employee towards risks is different from the attitude of management towards risks. And because of that, the employee may be willing to take some decisions that management may not be willing to take just to make higher commission. Okay? So next one, investors. Another person should read for us. I've read employees, so another person should read for us. You can just unmute and read. This is the best way to flow in class. Okay, I'm with you.
When investors buy the shares of a company, they have some expectation of the sort of company it is and the returns they might expect from their investments. For example, an investor might buy shares in a company expecting it to be a high-risk company, which could achieve a very high rate of growth in the share price. Or an investor might buy shares in a company because the company is stable and can be expected to pay a regular annual dividend. The board of directors should try to ensure that the risk appetite of the company is consistent with the risk appetite of its shareholders and other stock market investors. A company should not expose itself to strategic risks that expose the investors to a risk to their investments that the shareholders would consider excessive. When a company increases its exposures to strategic risk, many existing shareholders might decide
Hello?
my phone went. Yeah.
Okay.
When a company increases its exposures to strategic risk, many existing shareholders might decide to sell their shares and switch to investing in a lower risk company. Investors with a larger risk appetite might buy the shares. The board of directors should keep shareholders informed about the significant risks that the company faces so that investors can assess their own investment risk.
Thank you very much. Okay, their own investment risks. Okay, yeah, don't worry. Let's leave that. So basically, investors, the risk for them is that you can just be on your own. No, you have carry your money, you have gone put it in one company, and then the company has high risk appetites, right? And they want to give you hypertension. Today the shares is up, tomorrow the shares is down. For investors, the risk is basically embedded in the value of their shares, right? The growth of their share price. They want to see, they have some expectations based off of the return, their return on investment, and they basically just want to see that the company is at all times, doing what they need to do, keeping their appetite within limits, such that the value of their investments and even the return of their investments, right, is very, very prioritized by that company. Okay, and then we have that we're saying that the board of directors should inform stakeholders. Is very, very important. That this is where some companies fight with like their people. They believe that directors don't share information You have already made up your mind on what you want to do. You will not be coming to tell me when you have already done it and there's already an advance ticket. So they're like, okay, tell us before you make all these decisions so that we can know that, okay, this is the level of risk I'm willing to accept. Or I can say, I'm not willing to accept this level of risk. So let me just let the matter go, right? So, but of course, companies do not want to do that because they don't want shareholders to pull out. Okay. To see how many pages we have because I want us to take questions. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. The next one, we have creditors. The main risk to a company is basically their main risk that creditor faces is that the company will not be able to pay what they owe, and if the company should close down, they will not buy from them. So imagine, so some businesses that have three major people clients, it can be a very big deal, right, to that company. So that is basically the risks that creditors face. They will not receive what they are being owed, and the company will stop buying from them. So they said a high-risk company is a high-credit company. The liquidity and insolvency risks facing a company can the liquidity and insolvency risks facing a company can affect the supplier or the lender. If the person borrows from a bank, the bank will assess the credit status of that company, and they will make a decision that they should lend this company money. Okay. Moving on, we have community and the general public. Communities and the general public. So the communities and general public are exposed to risks from the actions of company and the failure of that company to control its risks. What happens to the community? There are three major things that happen to the company. So let's call another person, Jacinta. Jacinta, good morning. You can read the 3 bullet points of the risks that communities face. What do they face? Hello, is Jacinta in class?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Hello? Okay.
You can read the 3 in the bullet points. Hello, can you hear me? We can hear you. I could hear you.
All right, so I'm moving the screen before. Okay. The consequences for the country of a decline in the business activities and profit of a company due to recession, especially when the company is a major employer. Number 2, health and safety risks from failures by a company to supply goods that meet the health and safety standard. Number 3, risks to the quality of life from environmental pollution due to a failure by the company to control its environmental pollution risks.
Okay.
Continue. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the thing. The first one is that there may be a decline in business activities, and because of that, when a company is a major employer, I say that imagine that we're closing down in Nigeria today. There are so many people that will be affected by it, just in terms of employment. And then we have health and safety risks that says that, if a company can no longer meet a certain quality of production, it may impose health and safety risks to we the consumers that are consuming these things. And then the third one is quality of life due to environmental pollution. When a company is not taking their waste disposal, their energy consumption very seriously, we are usually on the end part, receiving parts of this. They'll tell you that what used to grow up, rainy season was longer than this, all of that. And it's still in basic science that they tell you about global warming, right? All these things are the effects of the multiple companies that we have running. Now, we said the risks to a local community arise from economic risks faced by the company. So, sorry, if a company is forced to close down a production area, we're thinking about the fact that the people that they are employing in that community, they will not have work anymore. people that they can even tell you that when it is let's say pharmaceutical agency, right, that leaves a place, it just means that the price of those goods will increase, and there's a high chance that people will now start to suffer because of that kind of thing. Okay, so we have government, and we said that how is the government affected? Basically, tax revenue, right? Because companies create economic wealth for companies create economic wealth for countries. So if a company should close down, we're looking at the tax revenue that will occur, that will be lost simply because that company has closed down. So, for example, a manufacturing company in the European Union has been faced with risks of low competition from suppliers from the Far East. We said where labor costs in some countries are much lower than in Europe. To overcome this threat, companies might consider relocating their manufacturing plants to Far East, just because they don't want to face countries that do not give them like good entry points. Okay. So customers, how do the customers suffer? Basically, like I said, when a product is no longer in production, right? The customers may face risks of not having that product anymore, right? So some risks facing the companies could impact their customer. A customer might face operational risks due to human error or system breakdown in its own operations. Errors in delaying the goods or products could have impact on the customer's business. For example, if a company is late in delaying a key supply component to a business customer, the customer will delay his own customers, and before you know, somebody just notice that some particular thing is scarce. What made this scarce? Maybe one supplier delay, and then it's affecting the whole chain of production, literally. Then we have business partners. These are like joint ventures. And what is the risk? The risk is basically them losing their investments, right? Losing their investments to some certain extent. So I don't want us to rush this. I don't want us to rush this at all, but I really want us to take questions. Risks, not measuring risks. So I think we'll continue next class. Now, I want us to take exam questions before we even move further. I've sent the compilation of the past questions. Hello, I'm going to need you guys to respond to me.
Yes, we
Can
can
you
see
see
your
my screen?
screen. Yes, we can.
Okay, so please read question 3.
Professor Akinlabi has been teaching physics at a frontline public university in Nigeria for 30 years. He made quite some money from research grants and has over the years saved about 75 million naira, which he has been keeping in a fixed deposit facility. He complained to his friend, Dr. Albert, who is a professional accountant and expert in risk management, about the low interest rates on fixed deposits and how the high inflation rate in the country is fast eroding the real value of his savings. He is thinking of investing his savings in a poultry farm, and he is quite averse to risk. Having tried to get some information on the diverse dimensions and dynamics of risks involved in business, he asked Dr. Albert to offer some clarifications. As Dr. Albert, you are required to offer clarifications on the following. A, exposure to risk and the nature of qualitative risks. B, residual risk. 3, the dynamic nature of risk assessments. D, risk-based approach to business.
Okay, so what is exposure to risks? What is exposure to risks? Did we wait? The first one also asks is, did you do this today?
Yes, ma'am.
Did we do this today?
Yes.
Okay. So what's the exposure to risks? It is the risk that a company will suffer a loss, right? Due to favorable and unfavorable changes relating to that subject matter that they are exposed to. And that's why we had examples of foreign exchange. The moment you hold dollar, that was giving you an example of somebody that did a business plan when dollar was 700 and now dollar is 15. Abi, that's the exposure to risk. So what is residual risk? Let's be fast. So if we're able to manage our time, we're able to do more questions. So what's residual risk?
Is the risk that remain where after efforts have been made to reduce risk, like whatever that is left.
Okay. So what is the dynamic nature of risk management? So that one is story. It's just basically where I was saying that there is no one size fits all for how you respond to a risk. A company has to assess a risk and know how they want to solve against it, because no two companies are facing the same risk. So it is for that company to know how they want to assess a risk and how they want to mitigate against it based on how it is affecting their own company. That's the dynamic nature of risk management. And what is risk-based approach? What is a risk-based approach?
It means making decision from a risk point of view.
Exactly. Taking decision after the risk elements have been fully examined. You have evaluated it and you have understood the different parts to it. But now the twist is that you can see the marks they put in all these things. 5 marks, 3 marks, 7 marks, 5 marks. Please, this is not where you're going to say I've written 3 lines. This residual risk now, you can define it. Always give example. This one that is 7 marks. You can say a company that is situated where there is swamp is different from a company that is situated that in a place that has high tendency for burglary and theft. Abi, looking at insurance, you understand? You cannot be in a swampy area and be insuring for burglary and theft. You cannot be in a place where they have high chances to steal from you and what you're insuring from is flood. Do you understand? So examples, build your points. This kind of question 3 now, if I want to answer it, 1.5 page. Are you with me? At a minimum, don't go into the exam all doing like you are writing, you are doing like a favor as you're answering your questions. Write well. Are you with me?
Yes.
Write well. Okay, so let's look at the question 6. We most likely not have done that. Oh, we have done it. They said, according to the Turnbull report, list and explain the type of risks that are inherent in your VACU business. So let's read. This environment is described by many experts. Some of the driving force of the VUCA environment includes COVID-19 pandemic, the war of Europe, global warming, and a rapid changing technological environments. The impact of the VUCA environment on global economy includes, I don't know why I'm hearing myself, inflation, dwindling customers' purchasing power, rise in energy costs, among others, leading to an increase in the sense of turbulence, danger, and unpredictability. With the volatile in the business environment, comes frequent changes in laws, regulations, and businesses. You have been asked by a startup in consumer goods retailing business to provide advice as it concerns global economy. The company is planning to launch an online store with the focus on global customers. According to the Turnbull report, the Turnbull report is where we got our categories of risks for. What are the type of risks that they can face? Just start everything. What are the risks that, so let's say, for example, what to focus on now is the fact that it's an online store. So what are the kind of things that they face? But they are in the consumer goods too. So what are the risks they will face? Market risks, Abi. Change in price and commodity. Number 2, what was all your risks? Technological, exactly. Meeting up with technological changes. This is 15 marks. It's actually all the risks. You will now look for a way to explain it for an online store. So market risks will be there, technological risks will be there, credit risks will be there, business probity risks will be there, right? In a bid to sell, they may want to not be ethical. It may be legal and compliance risks, right? Where they're not following the rules based on the fact that they are an online store. So all the risks can affect this company. You will now explain it to suit into what? An online retail store. Do we get? Okay, so let's move on. And last class, I told you that CSME is the only course that you know that in every diet, You know the questions to expect. So the next thing to do is just to go to the next diet, because in every diet, there will always be a risk question. Do you get? There will be risks, there will be management, there will be corporate governance, and there will be ethics in all diets. Okay? So you we have question 2. They said, what is risk identification? What is risk identification? Yeah. What is risk identification? It is the first step in our risk management process. Abi? Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
It is the first step in our risk management process. It is an important step to be done because a company cannot mitigate against the risks that they have not identified. Another important thing to note is that risk identification is an ongoing activity. Because you have identified your risks last year does not mean you will not identify this year. And there are different ways that companies identify their risks. They can either use a risk manager or they can use risk committee. These people will be responsible for looking at risks at different levels, either in the whole company, in departments, in a particular function, and then they will report to the board on what they've identified. Then the board will now decide on how they want to do what, mitigate against that risk. Importance of ranking risks. Just use your risk dashboard. Why is it important to rank our risks? Using our risk dashboard, why is it important to rank our risks?
In order to attend the one that requires a review, to check the one that is actually in control, then which is the green light, then the one in red, meaning that there is need for assessment or something.
So yeah, see that it's just a 3 marks question. Then you see this one, impact of risks on shareholders. You see, I told you. Did I tell you? Did I not tell you? So 12 marks. Somebody like me now, I will list 12 stakeholders. Yes, I cannot take the chance. You may actually list 6, because if you go to the answer, maybe the marking guide, you see that they say for listing 1 mark, for explaining 1 mark. But somebody like me, I don't take chances, right? You can list as much stakeholders as possible, and then you start to analyze the impact of risk. So like I said, we'll not stress ourselves. We'll just go to the next diet. So just search for 2022 and we'll go to the next diet. So let's do November 1st. November, let's check question 2. Can you see? Using the Turnbull report, identify and present to the management of ABC conventionaries the categories of risks to which they may be exposed to. And they did not give you like a lot of context, right? You are the one that will say what a company that is doing confectionery is snacks, right? Refreshment. What can they face? Market risks, health and safety, reputation risks, right? Financial risks, maybe in their capital structure, technological risks. People are doing something a different way. You know, when you go to Burger King now, you can see one particular screen where you order by yourself. You print your receipt, Abby, and just go to pick up the order. But if your business is not able to meet up with that particular technological change, right? That's a technological risk to your business. So this is the 12 marks question. So I will typically say it is all the risks. It is all the risks. I will now explain it to fit into a confectionery business. This is why some people will get, see, let me tell you, CSME is the course that it is possible to attend all CSME class and fail the exam. And why? Students think that, okay, I'm in class, I've just listened to what this girl has said, and I should not have any problem. No. Now, I've told you this question. You have seen this question that in November 2022 question 2, what they asked them was categories of risks. But some students, most students do not make efforts to even take a pen and write. It's a 2 hours class. Imagine the amount of things we had to cover. I cannot come here and dictate a note to you. The actual ICAN pack has about 697 pages. Are you with me? It is not feasible for you to come to a class, somebody is dictating a note to you. When in the exam, it is not that hook, line, sinker, they will ask you what is. You also have to apply your level of professional knowledge. So I'm saying all of this that when you see exam question, even if you're familiar with the answer, take time, take your Bible and write. Write it before you, let the first time you're writing about the categories of risks not be in your exam hall. Do you understand? Are you with me?
Yes.
Let the first time that you're writing about categories of risks not be in your exam hall. And I always say it, the only time it is wrong to open answers in the back of the question is inside the exam hall. Before you get to the inside the exam hall, if you read the question, you are confused about the answer, go to the answer and read what is there as well, right? The most important thing is that you have a general overview of what they are trying to say, of what the question is. Okay? So don't say that because I just come to class, that girl will not even write anything, just be looking. You have to write for calculation courses because that's the way for you to even understand the flow of the course. Okay? But you cannot come into this class. We have so much to cover. Did you write notes the last week?
No.
Exactly. So, but I'm just trying to say that it is not supposed to encourage you just looking. You know, this is the second question that we're seeing, that they're asking them categories of risks. Plainly, the last one was about 15 marks. This one is about 12 marks. Please, please. So the next one is advise the management on ways of embedding risk. So we have not done this yet. I'm going to do that. Please remind me next week. Like, we have not gotten to that part of our risk management. So that way we can move to the next diet, which is May. In May, you can see in question 5. Yeah, question 5. We have not also done this. We have not done diversification, transfer. We have not explained all these things. But we have here, see this one. What is risk appetite? And explain 3 factors that could determine the risk appetite of a company. What is risk appetite?
The risks that the company is willing to take to make profit.
Okay, what are the 3 different risks? Is she the only one in class? Is Aisha the only one in class? Augusta, what are the 3 different attitudes that companies can have? Hello, Augusta, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, please let's continue. What are the 3 different attitudes towards risk that companies?
They can be risk lovers.
Risk conservative. Risk
adverse.
Okay, so now this one now is a tricky question. What are the 3 factors that determine the risk appetite of a company?
I think profitability.
Okay.
If they have high appetite for it, they may want to take more risk. I don't know if that is the answer to it.
Okay. I'm coming. I want us to, because you know that it was not directly in the material, so let's look at it. Okay, they said size, structure, and market condition. So they said more bigger companies are willing to take more risks, Abby, than smaller companies. Structure. When a company has a bigger structure, because of the bureaucracy, because of the amount of time that they will take in making one decision, they may necessarily not take decisions. They may necessarily be risks adverse, right, or conservative, because there's so many people that are reviewing it, as against a sole proprietor that will just say, Oh, okay, let's do it. I like the idea. Let's go for it. Then we have market conditions. When the market conditions are volatile, the risk is high because you don't want to look like you are losing out on something. So you just want to buy into everything that is going on. And then we have when the market conditions are now favorable, or when it's the stable market, people are not willing to push because they're like, oh, I know how this will end. I know how all of this will end. So typically, they will not want to push. Okay. So let's go to 2021. That's the last diet that we'll review. So like I said, this is to tell you that if you open every diet from November 2014 till now, in every diet, there will be risk questions. Are you with me? In every diet, there will be what? Risk questions. So in November 2021, let's look at question 2 and 5. So this one is risk manager, purpose of risk monitoring. That is in our next chapter. We have not done that yet. Question 5. We've also not done this one. As low as reasonably practicable and impact and likelihood of objective and subjective risks. Or somebody will look at me and say, oh, is it everything that we have not done? Let me show you. See, it's in a while. We'll do it next week. So this is it. Can you see it? As low as reasonably practicable. Do that next week. So let's move to May 2021, question 5. Can you see? The repeated questions. You see that this question came out in November after coming out in May. Do you notice exactly? They asked them a lap. They asked them the impact and likelihood of risks. This is a lap, and this is the impact and likelihood of risks, objective and subjective visits. We're going to do it next week. I don't know, should we do it next week or should we even come back to do it now? What do you guys think? What do you think, my people? Well, I've also not done this one, so I think, okay. What do you think? Should we come back? I think we should come back to the class. I would like to show you that what we are doing are the things that come out, okay? Well, let's take another question. Let's take another one. Said November 2020, question 5A. See the question. Oh yeah, somebody should read for us. Hello, do I have a class?
Yes, question 5.
Yes.
A, in an effort to increase shareholders' value, companies are often faced with risk. You are required, 1, to explain the term risk. 2, differentiate between the two broad categories of risk with examples.
What are the two broad categories of risks? No, B, don't worry. B is corporate governance. So what is risks? What is risks?
Risk is the tendency that things may not go as planned.
As planned.
Okay. Okay. What else? How many marks question was it? It is a 2 marks question. So, but give it body. Give it body. Give it body now. It is typically what is being faced by every company, right? Every now and then, right? And the companies have to actively look for ways to mitigate against risks when they materialize or before they materialize. So what are the two categories of risks? What and what?
Pure risk and speculative risk.
So pure risk is also referred to as downside risks, while speculative risk is what? A two-way risk.
Two-way risk.
Don't lie. Is it hard? Don't lie you for what we have been doing here. Is it difficult? Like what we have been doing, is it difficult to know? It's not. But this is what happens. This is just the second class, and see how many past questions we are seeing. So there are still so many things. The part that Mr. Ali is taking you is very broad, right? The problem that students have with CSME is too much information. And that's why I always advise that don't cram. Try to understand this, because you get into this is just risks is 2 chapters out of your 16 chapters in your pack. So it is for you to now know that you have to efficiently balance your knowledge such that you know different parts. This class will continue up until, like, personally, I like to close out with students on time because I'm taking about 40% of the course. I would typically close out with you around February ending, right? So it is for you to know that because she's taught class February ending doesn't mean that class has now finished for me, right? I still have to read all these things. Okay, so moving on. I said let's do the next diet. That's May 2022 question. May 2020 question 5. So you see, advise Ozzy's bakery on any 5 categories of risks that is inherent in their growth strategy. Ozzy's bakery is a baker of all kinds of bread, servicing only the Lagos market. In response to an anticipated increase for bread, the company has decided to install production capacity to increase production capacity from 1,000 to 5,000. However, the market for bread is closely dominated by bigger brands, and there are some stability in price across the brands. Thus, the risk of a price war is low. However, owing to the short shelf life of loaf, they are mostly sold to retailers, so we can see credit risks. And they said the company is also experiencing that the equipment really break down within the first 5 years. However, procurement of materials such as flour and butter has become challenging due to bigger bakeries increasing import duties. So number one, so let's look at this question and see the risks that we can face. So they want to increase their production from 1,000 to 5,000. Abi, right? They now said, what are the issues that they will face? They said stability of price. Price war is low. No, price war is low. So the first one we can see is credit risks, Abi. We can also see market risks. Procuring it can be issue. Then it can also lead to health and safety, Abi. As they are increasing their production, it means they have to factor in the health and safety of their workers, right? We're also thinking about what else, what kind of risks again? We can also think about liquidity risks. If people are not paying them, do they have enough money, right? And if they want to increase their production to 5,000 loaves, hope it will not lead to reputation risks, like them competing with the big guys in the business. So these are the kind of things that you think about. Then they said, analyze the impact of risks on any 5 stakeholders. Can you see how many times I've seen this question? Right? What do? You list out the stakeholders and you explain how the closure of any risks on Ozzy's, how it can affect their stakeholders. So I would just say that, to be honest, it is not unrealistic. Risks is even one of the areas where they ask the most direct questions. These questions that we're seeing, they are not out of the ordinary. They are not things that you cannot know, right? But you also have a responsibility. Class doesn't end when class ends. The ball is now in your court. You have a job to literally go and read these things, go and write it down. Write it down. Have a note as an assignment note. That's true. We can take this Ozzy's bakery for an assignment. So March, July 2020 question 5. you can send it to me in the course of the week if you have done that assignment. So March, July 2020, question 5. Send it to me in the course of the week. I don't want to keep us, because I know that we have another class, I think by 11, right? So that, is it your next class, is it by 11 or 10:30?
It's 10:30.
Okay. So let me not keep you, let me allow you to have at least 30 minutes of refreshment time. So in the absence of that, do we have any other question? Any other question?